Ready.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being patient and waiting. Welcome to Ask the Knights Live. This is the special edition. I am your host, Logan Pathwarden, and tonight I have two amazing Scadians with us. We've got Count Seto, and we've got Stelios. Thank you, gentlemen, for showing up.
Pleasure's ours.
Thank you for putting up with all these technical difficulties and all the craziness we've endured over the almost last hour.
It's all right. Like I said, the story that you can use. I said, what does the red button do? And I pressed it before you told me not to. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
All right.
No one listens to me.
We'll play the count. All right, gentlemen, welcome to the show. Tonight, like I said, is a very special episode. We are going to be talking a lot about the things that are basically moving this country and pushing this country and our society in the last few weeks here and today. I wanted to make sure that folks had an insight into our experiences as POC, as Black men within the SCA, and even within the United States. There are so many of our friends who know us but don't know us, and who have questions that they're reluctant to ask. And tonight I would say, hey, this is your chance. Ask us those questions that you're not sure of. Ask us those questions that you've been wondering, that you've been worried about. Go ahead and put them in the comments here, and we will get our tech team will get them to us as quickly as possible. But before we even get started, before I allow these two wonderful gentlemen to introduce themselves, I have to say a huge thank you to our compatriots, our comrades over at Between Two Peers. Without their help and without their technicians' help and their crew's help, we would not be doing this show right now. Not only did they give up their normal Friday night spot so that we could do this for you guys at a time where more people could watch, but then when we had tech difficulties, they jumped right in and made sure that that our voices are heard, and that's amazing, and I really, really do appreciate it. So from everybody here at Ask the Knights to everybody at Between Two Peers, thank you. Thank you
very much.
Now I will shut up and I will allow my guest here to introduce themselves. Please introduce your mundane self, your SCA self. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Council, I will let you go first.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for having us on the show. It's really an honor. And I have to say always, as a person of color, obviously I don't speak for everyone in the SCA. All I can do is speak for myself. My mundane name is Spencer Aaron Waddell. I'm 34 years old. I've lived in Illinois most of my life, but I was in the Air Force for a stint where I traveled over to Germany. I was a crew chief on C-130s. I got to go over to Kuwait for a while. I have done a lot of different jobs. You name it. When I came back, when all the jobs were really hard in 2009 around then, I worked at Victoria's Secret for a year. I worked at GNC for a year. I worked at Walmart for a little bit while going to school. I worked as a security contractor, armed security contractor, traveling around 300 miles a night throughout Missouri and St. Louis, answering phone calls. Now I'm a personal trainer. I want to be a physical therapist. I was a Red Cross phlebotomist, you name it. So always like trying things. And I'm really happy to be here. I've been in the society for 11 years now. Just got finished with our reign. It was a really interesting time for it to end during the whole COVID fiasco, and people really, really were so thankful they gave us support. We tried to make new things happen, doing things on Zoom. As you can know, things just do whatever they want to do. Sometimes we had times where like, hey, when's court going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. It's going to happen eventually. So that's just a little bit about me in the SCA. I love martial arts. I've been doing this for most of my life. It's been a really, really good time. And thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Lord Stelios, I know you don't like that, but you get your title.
Titles.
Hey, it's at the beginning and maybe at the end. That's it.
I have no use for titles. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, I am the most electrifying man in modern medievalism. If you've listened to the podcast, you probably know where that comes from. Stelios, Amenophis, Onuris. Mundanely, my name is CJ Hayes. I am currently a juvenile counselor. I have been a police officer. I've been an American soldier. But I've been Black all my life. So I got a lot of experience with that. Especially, having grown up in the Deep South. Oh, I got stories to tell y'all. Gay Rome teed. But I'm very, very happy to have been asked to be part of this because anybody who knows me, they know I got a big mouth. I got a lot to say. And y'all have given me a platform to do that. And I thank you so much for it. Also, watch Between Two Peers when you get the chance. Awesome show.
Absolutely.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, fantastic show. So my name is Logan Pathwarden. I am mundanely Leo Livas. I spent 20 years in the United States Air Force as an explosive ordnance disposal technician. I've got 4 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've got all the bumps and bruises to prove it. The only reason I mention that is because I want you to know that I love this country so much that I have I've given my life, or I've given my time. I can't say I've given my life, but I'm willing to give my life. I've given 20 years of my life. I gave my first marriage. I've given I've given a lot. But I love this country so much, and I think it is the best country in the world to be from. However, in my experience as a Black man in this country, it's not always necessarily the best one to live in as a person of color. And we will get further into that. So without any further ado, I think we should start getting to the questions.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask this first question like I ask a lot of my guests. And this is just a really easy one. What drew you to the SCA? Like, what about the SCA, or how did you find out about it, and why did you say, hey, this is something for me?
I'm going to let Lord Stelios go this time first, so.
Man, if you call me that again.
I want to get one in there.
Okay. Hey, he's a count. He can do it.
No. I'm just sorry.
Anyway, so a long time ago, there was an MMO called City of Heroes, actually. And I ran a rather large guild on there, and we had a Ventrilo. Was it Ventrilo? I think it was Ventrilo. We had a Ventrilo channel, and we had this one guy. He was always talking about the SCA, and I'm like, what is this? And he shows me a video of, I want to say it was Penzik, and I'm like, okay. And he says, you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah. So what I done was I took my 26-year-old behind, took some vacation time, and decided to fly up to Portland, Oregon to meet some random weirdos on the internet. I figured, I'm a police officer. I mean, it's not like they're going to kidnap me or something. I wasn't worried about that. So I came up here to Portland, and we went down to West War 2010. That was my very first event. And I said, you know what? I like this. I get to experience all of the adrenaline of combat, but none of the guilt of actually having to take a life. Because, you go out there, you brawl, and when it's over, you go and you pat your opponent on the back, and you go and have beer later, and it was great. To me, it was this beautiful amalgamation of violence and camaraderie. So I was like, yeah, I'm all in on this. And a year later, I packed up everything in the 2 Foot Lockers, got on a plane, and flew to Portland, and never looked back.
Wow. Very cool. Well, for me, when I was stationed at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, my best friend that I've known since we were 12, we used to play card games and card shops, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, everything you name it. He was like, I'm doing this bamboo stick fighting thing. You should do that when you get back to the States. I was like, that sounds great. I was 22 at the time, not knowing that at Ramstein, I probably could have looked around since I was in Drachenwald and probably could have found people to train with there. But as soon as I came back to the States, I started playing. I met friends, I met loved ones, everyone, and I haven't turned back since. Like I said, I tell people, like, I can talk to someone and they will vouch for me anywhere in the United States, maybe even the world, and get me a couch to sleep on. You get to fight, you get to have a good time. I've done Battle of the Nations, I've done MMA, I've done different Eskrima fighting, I've done Shonen Ryu, you name it, all different fight systems. But the level of what we do in this game as far as fighting is amazing. And then 2, when you get done fighting, you can learn everything about the world. You can do arts and sciences, blacksmithing, you name it. So it was more like, I started this because I didn't have any money for martial arts at the time. And I was like, the SCA is relatively free. Free. But I know, but it was a good place to start. So you can still do so much, and that's what got me into the SCA, and I've been here ever since.
Awesome. So I guess in this one I have to answer these questions too, because
yeah,
how this works. So I was in high school. What was I? I was like a freshman, junior, or something in high school, and I saw this thing on ESPN where they were doing, it was a show about strange and unusual sports. As a little kid, I'd always loved, fantasy, Lord of the Rings, all the D&D stuff and all that kind of everything about that. And I was a huge King Arthur nerd, right? Like I love King Arthur, all the stories. Not just the watered down ones that we normally get.
Sure.
My grandfather had this amazing book of these, like, there's hundreds of stories about King Arthur and all the different knights. But anyway, so I saw it on ESPN, and they did a little story on Great Western War, and I saw that and I was like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And this is before, like, internet was readily available. I did not have a personal computer at the time or anything like that. So, like, I had to dig.
Yeah.
Wow.
I finally, like, I ran into not even my local chapter, a chapter that was 2 cities away at a little Renaissance fair demo that they had, and got hooked up with them. They hooked me up with my local barony in my city, and I haven't looked back. Like, I started as a teenager. As soon as I was old enough, I got to college and put together my first suit of armor and started training. I had I'm embarrassed to say this, but a Freon can helm was my
that's cool. You're talking about your roots.
Right?
That's so cool.
Wow.
Right? And that was the year before I think they outlawed this. So that was back in '93. But then, like, I've had a few breaks here and there. When I joined the military, I joined late. I joined at 22. And so I took a break going to, basic training and my tech school and everything. And then I got to my first duty station in Las Vegas at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. And I was like, I still had all my stuff. I was like, man, I gotta look them up. So, now we had computers. It was so much easier and everything. Looked them up, jumped out there. Shout out to Baroness Stockhoffen. Y'all are awesome. always were, always have been. And then, you know, like everywhere that I've lived, I've done SEA. The greatest time that I ever had in my entire life was in Drachenwald when I was stationed in Germany. It's one of the reasons why I still call Drachenwald home, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And then I have to tell you that the West Kingdom has been amazing. Of all the kingdoms that I lived in, I don't want this to sound trite, but they come in at a very close second, only because Drachenwald was so awesome that it's really, really difficult to beat them. And I know that Sir Ferguson McCart is going to probably beat me up on the field next time for saying that. But I mean, I love the West Kingdom. I'm very happy to be here. I love the Principality of Sinagua. I love the Mist. I love everything about this kingdom. But yeah, that Drachenwald was a big thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Why it was such a special place to me.
Sure.
All right, so I guess that's the first question down, huh?
Yeah, one down.
Man, you got three guys who know how to talk. All right, so I'm going to jump real quick into because we're already getting tons of questions from the chat here. So
Sure.
I'm going to look at these real quick. Okay, so one of these questions is one that I plan on asking anyway, and this is from Thomas. Thank you, Thomas, for sending in this question. So we're here to talk about this tough bit of our current history, and Thomas would like to know what issues have you experienced in your SCA careers, and dealing specifically with the topic that we're talking about, racism or exclusionism because of who you are or what you are, I guess.
Stelios, do you want to go switch every other? I'll go first this time, and then you go first next time.
Sure.
Okay. So it's hard. There's been sometimes, most of the time people are generally nice always, but we have biases and some people are not raised all the way. I know for certain that in some events or some walks of life, I've been maybe the first African-American man that some people have met. And sometimes people don't know how to actually talk to you about things. They try to say things to put you at ease. They try to do things to make you feel like one of them. And it's hard. Something that I think that is not a compliment as of these days is saying, you're the whitest black guy I know. That's one of those things where you're like, I see what you mean by this. You're trying to include me in something that what you are in that case and relate that I am one of you. And I appreciate the sentiment. However, I am a black male. Don't rob me of my heritage. Don't rob me of that part. You can, and it's not as backhand to say, wow, you speak so eloquently or you speak so much this way. It's just who I am. My mom was a kindergarten teacher and my father was a Sears, Roebuck manager. Then he was also an Army veteran during Vietnam War. All these things. My parents raised me the way I am. And this is things that you still see in the SCA. And before I go on other parts, that's why when people say the Black Lives Matter movement is a political issue, it may be talked in politics, but it's a humanitarian issue. So it's all about learning things, what to say. We're all going to trip. We're all going to sometimes bite our tongue. But for me, it's always how it's said. What is the intention? I'm not just going to fly off the handle. I'm going to be like, hey, what did you mean by that? But it's talks that are hard. It's things that you have to put people at, it makes them comfortable. But that's just one thing that I've had. I've had some people, like, they've talked to me that I've had friends that I've now known for almost 11 years. And during this last pandemic, especially when I was Prince, we get in our cups, we talk about things. I won't mention names, but one of my white friends was talking about, like, hey, I have white guilt about this. I learned that this is where the bad blacks live. This is where the good ones live. He didn't carry that over, but he's like, I'm trying to learn how to be better. And I was telling him the first part about being better is just talking about things. Being able to listen, knowing that people are going to have all different viewpoints, but just listen to that person's viewpoints, then take what you can from them. But I'm going to ramble some more, but I'll let you go, Stelios. But that's just one instance.
I'm not speechless. I'm just trying to figure out where to start.
Sure.
You know, God, when I put it like that, it makes it sound like it's been all bad. It hasn't, and most of it has been absolutely fantastic. And I think a lot of what I've experienced has been out of, well, ignorance. Now, I think when people hear the word ignorance, they automatically assume that it's meant as an insult of some sort. No, it just means unlearned, something you have not learned yet. Now, here's the thing. I live in an area that is very, very heavily white, probably one of the whitest areas in the country. So exposure to Black people has been next to none. So a lot of what people know, they've learned from, well, it's not the Rona. TV. They've learned it from TV. And if there's one thing that I can say is that TV has not been good for our image, especially us as Black men with dark skin, you know. And I've been in conversations where people will all of a sudden like code switch on me. They'll talk to one guy a certain way, and then they'll talk to me in an entirely different manner. And I don't know if they realize that that's a little offensive, because I don't need you to put on a Black scent to talk to me. I mean, I don't have one. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can get a little ignorant every now and then, but you know, if we've gotten to that point, well.
No. See, look, the South coming out in you is a lot different than.
Exactly. Like the kids I work with, they know they've gotten on my last nerve, because one, the knife hand comes out and every sentence starts with boy. You know, and I start to twang up a little bit. But I think people do this because it's what they know, and they haven't been given a chance to be, well, gently corrected. So, yeah, I mean, that's just one of the few things I've had issues with. I think another thing is, you know, I think people view us with a little more scrutiny, and they say some things that are rather insensitive. Last thing. One of the first things that I came across when I first started doing this was, you know, persona development. And I said, well, why not do ancient Egyptian? And somebody says, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, but why though? Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, you just can't. And I'm like, but why though? Mm-hmm. I mean, so you're going to tell me that I can't portray a persona from ancient Egypt, even though you got like a whole legion of Romans running around over there? Who you fooling? Don't do me. And I made the armor anyway.
Good.
Next question.
Well, no. So look. So just to add on to that, my major interest was 14th century England. Like I love like the white harness, and I love like everything about, you know, that period where medieval armor like became the knight in shining armor. You know what I mean? Like late 14th, early 15th century. I've always loved, you know, the aesthetics and all that, and I love the 14th century in general. But I had people tell me, oh, why don't you do a Middle Eastern persona? And I'm like, well, because that's not what I'm interested in. I mean, like, sure, I'm interested in the Middle East and the Crusades and everything like that. And I do have some Middle Eastern clothes now as, you know, another outfit, but I also have Lange Connect clothes. You know, I've got this badass Waffen Rock that
Ooh, he fancy.
Beautiful friend of mine
It
made
looks
for
real
me.
nice. Real
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I mean, and I love it. But when and out here in the West, it's a little different because. Oh wait, since we're on the Between Two Peers channel, as I said, out in the West, I'm gonna abide by
The rules. Yeah.
But since I've been out here, it's uh, persona is not as important as having a good time. One, and
Mm.
they want you to build that a good outside, a good appearance, which I think is awesome.
Mm.
I'm not really sure if we need to push persona too much in the SCA. But then again, like it's every single part of this game is different. Some
Sure.
people love persona play. Some people love just dressing up in clothes. I'm a clothes horse. I'm gonna have as many nice outfits from as many different places as I'm interested at all.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and like you guys said, most of the run-ins with any kind of racism or bigotry, it's either been super blatant or it's been one of those little things where someone thinks that they're paying you a compliment, or that it's just the ignorance of not knowing that that isn't really something that you should say to anybody, let alone me or you.
Mhm.
The only really the only incidents that actually hurt me was when I was very young and I had first started. I was 17 years old and I had been going to SEA events for probably a little under a year at the time. And I was very excited about them. I couldn't fight yet because I was still too young, but I was having a blast. I was bringing my friends to 12th night and all the fighting demos, and I was trying to help out as much as possible. And I told a friend of mine from the barony that I was in that I was planning on going to a certain event, and that friend pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I know you want to go to this event, but I think that you should think twice about that."
Mm.
And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "The people who are putting on this event, and it was an event on their private land. Um, they said the people who are putting on this event really don't want you there." And me thinking, because the SCA had been a place where um, I wasn't a black kid. I was just a kid
Mm.
up to this point, and me thinking like, "Wow, what did I do? What what did I do to offend someone where they wouldn't want me at their event?" And I was like, and I asked them, I was like, "What did I do something? Did I say something wrong to someone?" And they said, "Oh no, it's they don't want anyone that looks like you at their event." Now this was way back in like probably 91, 92.
Mhm.
Um, and I was still a very young man at the time. And that was the first time that I had gotten kicked in the teeth in the SCA, and
Mhm.
in a place where I thought I had found a place that was different.
Yeah.
And it almost made me quit. It almost made me stop. I almost stopped right then and there. But luckily, the rest of the people from my barony really made sure that I kept coming back out. And those people, from what I know, no longer play because they don't find the SCA a welcoming place for their kind of bullshit.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fuck them.
exactly. So, yeah, that was my first. It wasn't my last, but it was the first one. It was the one that reminded me that the SCA is still uh, still the USA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So let's get on to the next question. I've got one here in the comments right now. And this is actually something that we were talking about earlier, or when we were trying to get the stream up and running. But this is a very important question. So the question is: Black women are being forgotten right now, yet we continue to do the work too. What should the SCA do to be more accepting of our voices? Some of us are tired of being called angry. What can we do to get Black women more visibility, more participation in the SCA? I mean, we have some. We all know a few.
Mm-hmm. Stelios, do you want to do that one first?
I think it's good that our society diversity officer is a Black woman. I think that's cool. I gotta read the question again. What should the SCA do to be more accepting of your voices? You know, that's a question that doesn't really have a concrete answer because everybody's idea of acceptance is different. I think, though, that people should be a lot more willing to actually listen and talk and have dialogue. And when I say listen, I mean actually listen. Don't just sit there with your mouth shut, but actually listen to what this person is saying to you. We have this issue in society with people who they hear something, but they don't listen to it. They hear it in order to respond to it, but they don't listen to it to understand it. And that's a problem. It's a problem that I've had. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like my hands are clean. They ain't. Hell, I fucked up. You know, I've said things, I've done things I'm not proud of, but I've also, learned from said things. And one of the things that I learned to do is listen. Listen, not to respond, but to understand. And I think that's a skill that a lot of people need to learn how to develop. And a lot of the time when I am going to do that, I will ask the question and I will tell this person, look, I am not going to offer a rebuttal or a response. I just need to hear what you have to say so I can think about it. And that's worked very well for me, and it's worked very well for them. One, they didn't feel like they had to fight me. And two, it gave me an opportunity for them to speak their truth in a way where they felt like they would actually be listened to. And I think if we did that a lot more often, we make a lot more progress.
Yeah, I agree. And that's hard. Someone once said recently that certain people, depending on your fame or how you're renowned, you have a bigger megaphone. And sometimes you need to let the people with the smaller megaphones be able to be heard. Now, once again, I can only do what I think is right by asking questions and then listening, but every individual is going to have their own message. You were talking about our diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, Baroness Zara. She was a part of my staff and really helped us, and we made her a Baroness, and she has really helped the society at large. Maestra Giada, got a chance to meet her at Penzic. She was also really, really great to see people of color at positions that are there where they can get a chance to help more and listen and get a chance to listen. Because sometimes we have these preconceived notions in our head and we're already thinking about what we're going to say next, but you're not really listening. Mm-hmm. My friend, Missy Eve Martin, she doesn't play a whole lot now, but she's a lady of color that lives in the Champaign area. And whenever I get a chance to see her, I'm like, what are some things that you're worrying about? What's going on? And now it's not for my job to be their voice speaking through them, but sometimes say like, hey, you can speak to these people and people will listen. And then if people don't listen, then I have something else to say. But everyone's going to have their different opinions, and you have to be able to listen to them and take those and move forward. My other friend, Jahara, we also made her a court baroness. Now, these people are close to me, but they've been close to me my whole SCA life. Whenever you become king, queen, things, that's where you get to do what you think you can do to help them. She's been of great help for a long, long time. And I wanted to acknowledge her and also help give her a voice. But yeah, she's always had the voice. She's going to hit me there. She's like, give you a voice? No, you've always had a voice. And it's been awesome to have her every inch of the way helping me and listening and learning. And it's weird. So once again, I'm only 34 years old. I have a lot to learn. However, I have lived my life. I have seen people die. I have seen having to deal with friends. I've helped friends die. So even though we're getting kind of farther the woman of color thing, where I want to say people dismiss me sometimes just because I'm young. So therefore it's hard to help other people have a voice. But I just try to raise people up as much as I can and listen whenever I can as well.
Absolutely. So when it comes to POC and women in particular, I think one of the things that the SCA needs to do or should do is that we need to. We've talked about this in other circles. We need to do more demos. Over the last decade or so, I've seen the amount of demos that we do fall dramatically with the rising price of gas and with everyone working 2 and 3 jobs and not having enough time having enough time to barely get to SCA events themselves. Demos have fallen off. Demos at colleges, demos at elementary schools. And this is where we need to go. And not just for people of color, but for everybody, for our future generations. We need to get out there and do some demos. And they need to see women of color, men of color, everybody. They need to see the diversity of the SCA in that demo. And not just in the people who go to do the demos, but in what we're there to show them and teach them. You know, like I would love to see someone start studying the fabrics of the Maasai. And, you know, some of the other African tribes that do, they make these amazing, crazy, fantastic, colorful cloth. And I'm going to say this right now, and there will be some people out there who disagree with me, but just like I am allowed as a Black man to study and learn how to make traditionally European crafts, fabrics, whatever, if you are not a POC and you are interested in learning how to weave kente cloth, do it.
I would totally probably buy some from you. I'm just saying.
And I say this, and now I'm gonna get on my soapbox. And this is between two peers. I'm gonna use their thing. Really quickly, I want to go into at least my definition of how I understand the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. Okay? If you are not a person of color or of a certain ethnic group, and you enjoy that ethnic group's food, and you learn how to make that food, and then you go on to make that food for other people, that is called appreciation. If you like the food, learn how to make the food, and then claim that it's your food that you came up with, that you did, that is appropriation. If you, Count Seto, you wear and have a Japanese persona.
Actually, I have an African persona in a different Japanese setting. But you're fine. You're fine.
Right. So, but you wear Japanese clothing.
Yes.
If you had claimed that this was African clothing for my persona, or this is something that I made myself, that would be appropriation.
Very much so.
You can appreciate things. And all those people out there, and I'm talking to you, people of color, and you know who you are, all of you who get mad because someone who doesn't look like you appreciates something that you do and want to emulate it and want to learn about it and gain a better understanding of who you are and maybe be able to make things a little bit easier on all of us. If you give that person a hard time, you are the asshole.
Facts.
I may not be very popular with some folks for that, but it's the truth. We are a teaching society, and we should be not just the SCA, but in general. America is a great melting pot. I learned how to cook Korean food from Koreans in Korea. It's not my food. I did not create it. I don't claim to create it, but I still cook it for my family, and they love it. But I don't claim that it was mine, and that's okay. So, okay, off the soapbox. I'm
No,
sorry.
it was a good soapbox. It was a good soapbox.
It's one of those things that have been bouncing back and forth that people who are angry, and most of the time rightfully so, will push a little bit too far because they don't understand the definition themselves, and they will get mad at other people for appreciating their culture and call them and say that they're appropriating.
And then the last part before we move on, I also was remiss to say, women of color in general, not just the Black community. We have all, the indigenous, we have Japanese. I have tons of friends that are in the SCA that wise. And the thing is, they fit under that lens where they pass. People don't notice them. My good friend, Princess of Aidenfeld, Mineko, she looks pretty much Caucasian, but yet she is of Japanese descent as well. So she gets in that kind of situation where sometimes people are like, oh yeah, this stuff. And she's like, you don't notice. So we get stuck on only our African, because this is our culture, or this is something we're focused on, that we got to think about everybody. But that's all I got to say.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. I didn't mean to derail.
No,
No, it's good.
It's
organic. It's organic.
I was getting passionate. All right. So let's see if we can find. I've got a question for us that we need to lighten this up just a little bit.
Sure.
So, what is the most exciting SCA memory that you have? Like that one thing that really, really, like you're going to, on your deathbed, as you slip off, you're going to remember, as you're watching your life, you're going to remember that, and it's going to make that little grin hit your face.
Seems like he's thinking I'm going to go. I got mine in my head. It was, since it's recently, I really remember when I was Prince and I wasn't feeling that great, I got a chance to go to the youth field and get to watch all the youth fighting. And it is amazing. We have kids all the ages from like 5, 6, probably maybe even a little bit younger, fighting, doing all this stuff. And I'm just like, man, I wish I had this when I was a kid. And also these kids here, they're going to be dangerous if they stay in this later. So I need to be nice to them to make them my friends now. So it was nice to see them. And it was cool because some of them, they've been in the SCA for a whole long time. And they're like, we feel like we're not really appreciated. And I was like, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I'm here to hang out with you. And I've always actually, for the past 5 years, I try to come by and like teach them something or have them teach me something. But things are busy and I'm making more time. You have to make time. We always say we're busy, but I make time to go see them. So I got to watch their tournament. Everything was going on. And this one young lady was doing awesome, kicking butt. She was in the oldest division. She's doing great. And she came back to me. I was just kind of, I'm 6'4", I'm 280 pounds, but I blend in and people don't see me sometimes. It's very interesting. So I'm just sitting in my chair and she comes there, plops in front of her father. And she's like, Dad, I was supposed to win this tournament. I was doing really good. And they ended up having the tournament with the last fight without me. I was helping my friend. She was having like heat exhaustion and they didn't see me. That's BS, Dad. And she's just going, and she looks up at me and she's like, oh my God, the prince is here. I didn't know. Or something like, it's okay. It's all right to be mad. It's okay. We all make mistakes. And that's not even a mistake. they should look to see find you. So at that point, I was like, I could stop this whole tournament and say, refight this. But then the kids are going to hate me too. So she ended up getting her point. She did really well. And later I gave her a link from my chain. I said, this is what you had chivalry. We're going to talk about this later at the end. I want to, like the 7 things we talk about in the whole SCA, like our core values. You showed these today. Don't ever forget this. And just to see her eyes and be happy and know that maybe she won't beat me so hard when she finds me on the field one day makes me so happy. So that's my favorite story that I have right now.
Awesome. Lord Stelios.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I did it again. What's up?
Got him.
You know what? Both of y'all gonna get the friction.
That's fine.
But
hey, you don't remember what happened the last time we crossed glaives, do you?
Oh yeah, you killed me, but you died too.
And you killed me.
boys. Back to the question. Gosh.
Okay.
Sorry.
The thing that I remember, I've only been doing this since 2011 consistently, so I'm still writing this story in a lot of ways, but God, there's been so much stuff that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to just grab one thing, but the story about the kids reminded me of something that happened at a crown tournament. Me and my Myrmidon sister Andromaca, we were walking by this Eric, and they had all these youngins in there, and they were running around and doing what youngins do, in armor, of course. And so we walk in and we pick up a couple of sticks, and they look at us and we look at them, and one just goes, yeah! And they all charge, right? And so I'm fighting off all these little animals. And I remember this one kid specifically because he's the son of Stephen of Pembroke. This kid threw a perfect Molinet. Perfect. It almost hit me with it, and I'm like, okay, where did you learn that? Because I'm pretty sure that you don't know how to program the VCR or the DVD player, but you know how to throw that shot. And you almost hit me with it. You remember the thing that we used to watch the old Dragon Ball Z tapes on?
You are totally right. I totally know.
But yeah, I do have a soft spot for the kids. I love the kids, so yes, it was really the son of Stephen of Pembroke. It was really the son. But
so
I do love the youth combat. So a lot of my memories are with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So and this is funny. One of the reasons I think that we all have these fond memories of SCA kids is because they're kids. And these kids have not, like, they see you as somebody who is here at this SCA event with them. They don't see you as anything else yet. They have not been sullied. They have not had
life experiences.
Exactly.
Hard ones.
And all they do is they see you as another friend, just like they see other kids. And I will say this, racism is learned.
Absolutely.
It is not inherent in us, in any of us. And I don't care who you are, what color you are, we all have our prejudices.
Sure.
We all have
bad experiences.
Yeah. Bad experiences. And we all judge people, right? None of us are innocent in our judgment of other people based on the way they look. But you can learn that you do that. You can admit to yourself that you do that. And you can get past it. You can get over it. And you should.
Yeah, exactly. And I won't go too much. When we say it's learned too, I want people to think about this. Some people always go like, I don't teach my kids that. I'm like, they learn things throughout the outside world. They are like sponges, as you know. So it doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. Doesn't mean that it just means that they learned it eventually. Because most kids at the beginning, they might notice for a different skin color that was, but they still see you as a person. They might see you as a mean person. They might see you as this person, or maybe scary. But most of the time, they just see you as a person. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And they may have not necessarily learned it from you, as a parent.
Yeah.
They might have not learned that from you. They might have learned it from a friend. They might have learned it from a friend's parent.
Exactly.
Or TV.
TV.
Yes.
We do not have cable
important
in this
thing.
house.
I'll just say, like, as a parent of 2 grown kids who came out pretty decent, screen time, limiting that shit, it's kind of important. I know today's kids are different, and they're smarter and faster and all that kind of bullshit, but sometimes you need to take that screen away and give them a damn book.
Sure.
Right,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail it so much. I just wanted to make sure people knew that. Some people.
No, I'm getting my old crusty on here. All right, so there have been several versions of this question thrown around in the run up to this, but this question is from Latoya Johnson. It says, what should we do to settle the All Lives Matter debate in the ACA in the face of Black Lives Matter?
I don't remember who went first. Yeah.
What debate? What is there to even debate? Because you know what? It's time. Fuck it. I'm gonna be the rated R superstar today. There ain't no shit to debate about this, because the only reason that All Lives Matter bullshit was brought up in the first place was as a direct response to Black Lives Matter. Nobody sat there and said Black Lives Matter more than anybody else's life. Nobody said that shit. Literally nobody. But somebody got the idea to say, well, maybe they're just saying that they matter more than anybody else. No. If you have a broken leg and I'm a doctor and I see that you have a broken leg and I say, well, all bones matter, does that fix your broken leg? No. Black Lives Matter was specifically created to bring attention to the idea that society as a whole does not view us as human. They do not view our life as valuable. I watched a video of a police officer kneel on a man's neck for 8 minutes. I've arrested suspects that have done terrible, heinous things. I've never put my knee on a man's neck for 8 minutes. You have to have something in your head to look at a person and say, well, that's not really a person to me, so I'm going to kneel on them for 8 minutes. And the whole reason that All Lives Matter bullshit was cooked up in the first place was because somebody somewhere felt the need to try to discredit the very idea that we might want to be valued the same as everybody else.
And to say that part where people now, and I don't care about the wording, that part is fine. That is definitely true. And now people are saying, well, all lives don't matter until Black Lives Matter, which is saying the same thing. But I'm glad that they finally got it. So that's fine. And the biggest point, I won't say it again after this point, is that when people say keep your politics out of your SCA, we are humans. There's always going to be politicals whenever we get together. Now, they may talk about the political agenda and use Black Lives Matter for whatever we talk about government-wise, but it's a human rights issue. And like when I made my post talking about being arrested, or not arrested, but detained at that point and things are going through your mind, that was more of a, like I said, it's a humanitarian issue. And I know things are illegal. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know if we'll do that question later. But that's really what needs to be done. And if that makes people uncomfortable, it's their fault if it makes them uncomfortable. Now, we have to be careful how we say things because words matter. But sometimes you got to check yourself and see, why does this make me uncomfortable? So
if your feelings matter to you more than my life, we got a problem. Because I don't give 2 squirts of donkey piss about your hurt feelings if it means that somebody's going to shoot me or somebody who looks like me simply for existing, knowing that they can get away with it. That's a much bigger issue than somebody's ego being bruised. I'm sorry, y'all.
No.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
Don't be sorry. So, and here's another problem that we have is, in my opinion, is we apologize too much. We apologize for other people having hurt feelings when we shouldn't. Like,
I learned that from my Canadian friends, but they
Well,
also
fuck it.
tell
I
me
don't
that's not really
apologize
sorry.
then.
well, no, but look, man, we've done it all our lives.
But you're right. You're
You know
absolutely
what I
right.
mean? And I will not apologize anymore for being a black person, right? And it's part of who I am. I am a black person. But the person that you meet in the SCA, the person that you hang out with, that you laugh with, that you fight with, that you share beers with, that you talk to up until 2:00 in the morning with, it's just a person. And that's what we mean by Black Lives Matter. If we were all blind, if we all went blind tomorrow, and there was no way, and we all had this exact same voice, you would have absolutely no way to tell whether or not you like the person except for your interaction with them. And so your interaction with people should be your driving force. And you should strive to interact with as many people as you possibly can, because you do not know what you are losing, what you are missing out on when you do not interact with people. I have been, for 6 months, I was stationed in Saudi Arabia. In every country that I've been, I try my best to get to know at least one local person. And I try to get to know, I want them to know that I'm not judging them for being a local person. I want to know about them. I want to know what they think about the country that they're in, that they live in. Why do they love it? What if I am on vacation in this place, what should I go see? What are you proud of about your country? You know, one thing that I found out talking with Saudis, talking with Iraqis, talking with Afghanis, South Koreans, Germans, French, all these people that I've served with, we all have something in common. We all want to be treated with respect and dignity. That's it. It's as simple as that. And if you treat other people the way you want to be treated, we wouldn't have any problems whatsoever. None whatsoever. And we would find out that we have much more in common than we do not in common. God damn, there's a fucking soapbox again.
All right. I think this should be addressed. The apology. It's a knee-jerk reaction, and I'll tell you why. For the longest time, I have not been allowed to get angry. I've not been allowed to be angry. I've not been allowed to be loud. I've not been allowed to be aggressive, because that leads to somebody calling the cops. Because, oh God, CJ got angry. I'm going to go hide in my office and call the sheriffs. Even though I fucking work here.
And I was gonna.
I'm sorry. Was that specific?
No, and even since you opened that up, I have my friend, and I'll call him out in this part because it's good. His Grace Duke Edmund, who was the king while I was prince, and we had a talk once before where he's like, "I've never seen you angry. I've never seen you lose your temper." And I didn't tell him right at that point, but in my head I was like, because I can't lose my temper. And that's why when people say, well, I'm afraid of being the angry black person, I'm afraid of being the angry so-and-so, this part, you are in control of your emotions. That's one of the few things you are in control of. You own it whenever you do fly off the handle, but I have not. People worry about if I did, but I'm not going to talk about that. But it's just those things, I am in control of that. And it takes time. My whole life, going back to when Spencer was just little, I remember being in third grade where someone was like, I thought black people ran fast because they beat me in a race. I remember in SCA one time, because I was fighting, my criticism, I was like maybe 2 years away from being united. They said, "You're being a little bit too athletic."
What the fuck does that even mean?
I'm not making this up.
I believe you.
Yeah, but I'm just saying those are the things.
That's asinine enough to be real.
Yeah. So I'm going to get off that part of soapbox, and then we got more questions. But when you said about the angry thing,
yeah.
I mean, when you say people are like, "Oh, you've gotten angry one time," I'm like, ask people, ask.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
So that's also one of the things that I get, and once again, yes, it is because we are not allowed to be angry, and I will say, as far as the outside of the SCA, and actually inside the SCA right now, you are seeing what happens when a group of people are not allowed to be angry every once in a while. It builds up. The hurt builds up. It's like it's like tectonic plates. That pressure is going to build up until it has to be released. And I am not saying that what things that have happened are good or bad. Nobody wants to see riots. Nobody wants to see looting, especially looting, because that's just fucking stupid. But there is a reason that these things are happening. And if you discount the reason because of what happened, then you are part of the problem. You don't have to like the outcome, but you have to acknowledge the reason that these things are happening.
I know we have one more thing, but that made me not want to forget this. When people say we don't need diversity, equity, inclusion training because they're ruining our SCA training, we just had someone who got exiled or thrown out or R&D'd that said Black people's lives starts mattering whenever they become productive members of society. If there's one person that thinks that way, there's someone else. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have to teach, learn. Hopefully they accept it, but you never know.
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. All right. We're going to go back over here to our question board in the chat.
Sure.
So this is something that all three of us know a little something about. The question is, I would like to hear your opinions on the all black Knights chain. Your general thoughts, and this comes from Stavros of the Outlands.
Okay.
So I think we all have an opinion on this, because at least on this side of the country, all three of us were involved in the initial conversation.
Mm-hmm. And we included, there was a lot of deliberation that got into that. It was almost 5 days of talks.
Yep.
We talk about privilege and something. I'm like, I am privileged that people know me. I do understand that. However, I did not keep it just to myself. I had other people. There were more people that could have added, but since it was talking about Knights this time, I predominantly kept to Knights, as well as there were a few women added, people of color as well. And we thought about this. We know that we aren't going to be able to please everybody. We know that there's different sides of each coin. Some people are going to see it as a symbol that's antagonizing it, see it as chains. But this chain I wear right now, my gold fealty chain, this is me striving to be the best at all times. At all times. And it doesn't matter when I'm not wearing it. On the other hand, it's just jewelry. If it was silver, black, gold, anything, rainbow, it's all what we put into it. And we decided, we had other people talking about it too. There were opposed viewpoints. It was not just everyone was all for it. We talked about it for 5 days. And we decided, as long as it's just to talk about, this is a symbol, to say that you are united in the struggle, we will accept it. And I think that's a good thing for people to do. However, the most important thing is to stamp out injustice when you see it. Listen, all the things we talked about before. But people are going to see things, other sides, whenever they want to or not. And if you don't wear the chain, doesn't mean you're not an ally. If you do wear a chain, really, that doesn't mean you're an ally either. And if you are an ally and you decide to wear the chain, that's all right. You can tell what it means to you and why you're doing it. And then if you happen to forget it one day, it's not, people aren't going to jump and be like, why are you wearing your chain? Why aren't you wearing this? What's going on? We got to keep it even. We have to think about intent, and we have to be able to accept differences and see that people are going to have their own opinions. But that's our opinion that we're going, and all we can do is speak for ourselves. But that's my feel.
The symbology of the chain does not bother me, because what is in a chain really? You know, you see a bunch of metal links hooked together, supporting each other. That's a chain. When MLK marched, he marched with people on both arms, linked arm in arm. That is a chain. When that one police officer got separated from his squad and a group of black men surrounded him to protect him from an unruly mob, they linked arms. They formed a chain. So if you're uncomfortable with the idea of this chain being worn as support for this cause, don't wear one. But there are some of us who we don't see it like that. I don't see it as a chain of captivity. I see it as a means of saying, I am arm in arm with you, and I will stand by your side until either we win this fight or this chain breaks and we both die. That's how I look at that. I guess my only beef with it is, well, I ain't a knight. I don't get to wear one.
So that's the thing too, unadorned chain. It depends where you are. If you wear an unadorned chain, you might be seeing. Wear the chain and you can put something on it. Put an award. Put a Black Panther talon on it. Wear a ribbon for people that want to wear ribbons. The only reason we said black chains is because we are knights, or people that want to be knights, or people that aspire to be knights. So we're not going to tell you what to do. You can do whatever you want in that part. But that was what we were going to do.
In that case, whoever is making these, get me some info.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'm sure that'll happen. So I was, for one, was a little surprised, but very honored to be included in that initial conversation. As you guys probably figured out, I talk a lot. Sometimes too much. But my biggest thing over this week of trying to figure out if this was a good thing or not, the question was asked, why are you doing this? Is it just lip service? Is it just to show, or just for show? And what I got back from the knights in the discussion was a pledge that they will, yes, they're going to wear the black chain, but in wearing those black chains, they're committing themselves to do better. Not only to be more involved, but it also to educate themselves on maybe an art or science that is more Afrocentric, or something that's less Eurocentric. Now, the SEA is a technically Eurocentric educational organization.
Used to. Now it's changed though.
Started as that.
But it right. Well, that's and it wasn't.
I get what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're saying.
Yeah. So basically, all these folks who are saying, yes, I'm going to put on this black chain, but I'm also going to devote myself to learning something about people of color in history, because, and Sir Fergus was on the other night and he said it really, really well. We all know this to be true. History has been written by the victors. Now, just because you won doesn't mean that you're right, but that is how history is written, correct?
Yep.
And so there has been a lot of whitewashing or Eurowashing of history. These people have pledged to do their best to change that by doing their own research into what people of color did in the Middle Ages, and then sharing that with others. And not just the knights, but everybody in that board. You will see in their post, a lot of people, they read that first half of the post and then they start flipping out about, you're wearing a black chain? But they don't read the rest of it where it says, I'm pledging to support POC. I'm pledging to learn more about the history of POC and to share what I learn with others. That's the important part. If you're not going to do that, then I would ask you, don't bother wearing the chain. But if you're going to do that, wear it. Because we need allies to be vocal and visual. If you're not going to be vocal or visual, then you need to find some other way to help.
And there'll always be the opposing viewpoints. That's why we listen to them, and then you got to make an individual decision what you're going to do. And when I was talking about the whole wearing Japanese, I hope it didn't jump on you, Leo. I was just trying to say one of my biggest, my persona, and that'll say this and be done, is where I wanted to try somebody that looked like me. And so my persona has always been the African samurai. Yasuke, actually Black Panther, the Chadwick Boseman is going to be playing him eventually.
Yes.
But that's what I base my persona on. So I make sure, I used to just let it slide, but when people say, you're a Japanese persona, I'm like, no. I'm in a Japanese culture, but I am African. And why I started wearing more Ethiopian, because I was going to actually do more things where he's from. So that's something that I try to express. And actually, I'm trying to do that in February. I want to actually go to Japan and travel where he went. And I want to go all the places that Yasuke went and record it. So these are things that I'm trying to do so I can be more informed, so I can inform other people and spread things. But once again, also box, sorry.
No, that's awesome. So, I mean, I think that we already went over this, but just a little addendum to that last question was, how would you address the concerns of POC within the SCA who are hurt by the use of the chain as a symbol? So if you don't mind, I would like to field this one first.
Sure.
I understand. There are some people who do not like the chain as a symbol. And for those people, I say, do not use the chain as your symbol. You have to look to the greater good of POC and the SCA, and our civilization as a whole. Not everyone is going to agree. And I'm not saying that you have to choke it down. I encourage you to continue being vocal if it's something that bothers you. But if it's not for you, then don't do it. If it is for you, feel free, as long as you are doing it for the correct reasons. Seeing a chain on Count Seto's neck, to me, is a good thing. It's something that I am striving for. It's something that he has done for himself and placed upon himself, and can take it off of himself whenever he wants. It is not a chain of bondage. It is a chain of fealty. Fealty is not bondage. It's a contract between your king and queen and the kingdom actually itself that they represent, and yourself. When you swear fealty, you're not swearing to those people. You are swearing fealty to the kingdom, who are being represented by those people who temporarily hold the position of king and queen. So let's not get caught up. Let's not get twisted around a small aspect. If it makes you uncomfortable, I'm not saying that it can't. I'm not saying that you should not, that it should not bother you. But if it does, ask yourself why.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
then
fair.
especially with fealty, as I tell a lot of people, fealty goes two ways. This is not just as being former king recently. This is how I thought always as a knight, as a squire, anything. Me deciding to put on this chain, because once again, I decided to put it on. It was awarded to me. I've been recognized, but I decided to keep on putting it on. Like I said, I can take it off, then I'm unchained. But it's me taking it off, and I decide when that part. But however, being also a knight, I decide it's always, people say, well, you don't know if they're a knight if they're not wearing a chain. There is always a good thing of being like, well, you got a white belt too. If I take this off, you should know I'm a knight because of how I act. That's all I got.
Hey, y'all said it all, man. I mean,
It's
all I could do at this point is hype man and say, yeah.
But I want you to know there's always going to be opposing views. And it's not that if we don't agree that we're enemies, it's just we see it from different sides, and we should come to talks and try to understand why. But if we get to points where we don't understand and we need to go our separate ways, that might happen. And you don't have to like everybody, but you have to respect them.
I mean, don't feel like your viewpoint is invalidated simply because somebody doesn't agree with you. You know, and more than anything else, please don't let a disagreement over something like this end a friendship. It should not.
No.
Especially with the intent behind it. So, you know,
Yeah.
one, don't let it think that your feelings are being discounted. Two, don't let it in your friendships. And three, drink.
I'm all out. But yeah, let's get some more.
Sorry. So we're running a little long, but if you guys are okay, I'd like to continue going with a few more.
I'm here.
As you would wish. It'll be recorded. People, if they want to watch it later, or that
Yeah,
part,
yeah,
it's fine.
absolutely. So, oh gosh, where did this one go? Okay, so this is one of the things that Count Seto and I were talking about a little bit earlier today. So, if you would, if you're willing, will you tell the story of getting pulled over
Sure.
right after you won the crown?
Yeah, it was a little bit after I won. So I was Prince. I was going to a far event. The princess and our friend Zara was traveling separately because I had to do some fittings for a friend. And I was driving along. I was looking. It's so weird to look at these posts and see it was actually on June 21st, and I was right past South Bend, Indiana. So I was driving. A cop was in the medium. He pulls out real quick, made me nervous, so I got over. Cherry's Berry's light comes on, you get pulled over, and you're not sure. Now, actually, I don't know if you made me still be able to share. I think I am. I actually have the video. So I know you're not supposed to do things real fast, but I was like, man, if anything happens. Now, this is all after things have happened. People have said, don't shoot me, don't stuff happens, and you're scared. I've been in law enforcement. I understand things that you're supposed to do. I understand about being courteous and calm, but you still get scared at this point. And I have my SCA stuff in the corner, as you can see. But I was like, okay. He comes up on the right side of my car, and he's like, hey, driver's license, or do you know why you pulled me over? And I was like, no, I do not. And he was like, well, he didn't really give me a reason. That's the thing. And he said, driver's license, registration. I was like, okay. I give this back to him. He looks, and he's like, all right, I'll be right back. And then when he did that, that's when I took the picture. And I was like, oh man, I don't know how this is going to go. I'm just nervous. I'm put my hands on the wheel now at this point. And he comes back on my left side. And he's like, get out of the car. I need you to get out of the car, please. And I was like, at that point, you're like, but why? Well, I need you to get out of the car. I'm like, okay. So I'm making sure not to be menacing. And this is not all for show. This is not things we talk about like, oh, I'm trying to do this. This is honestly how I felt. And it's when I made this post, preface this, and I did it on my birthday. I didn't want to do it on my birthday. It was just something on my mind. I didn't want to do it as king. I didn't want to do it as prince. Because I know that has different polarizing effects. And I wasn't going to keep it to myself. But my friends were like, please share this. And it reached so many people. I'm still getting, people are like, I showed this to my kids. I show this all stuff. Talk about young white kids that have known me since they were like 4. Now they're older. Like you said that part, the little kids, now they're 20, 22. They see me and they're like, what? They pulled over Seto? That seems, how could that happen? And it's that whole life experience that you show. Some people get jaded and they're like, well, I get pulled over all the time. I'm like, that's fine, that's true. But do you feel the way I feel when that happens? And if you do, I'm sorry and I relate as well. But this is how I felt. I walked to him carefully. He said, hey, like I said, I was wearing my Chicago Bulls jersey. I had the guns out, but it was hot. And that's why. And he was like a good, almost foot shorter than me. He was around my age, around young. He was white. And he's like, I'm going to search your car. And I know I had so many friends saying that's a legal search and everything. I'm like, I know it was, but he's going to say I had plausible cause. He sees stuff there. I don't know. At that point, I'm alone. He's that guy. He's the authority. Just listen. I know I have my rights, but sometimes you just let it go. Because I was more worried about other things. So I was like, oh, okay. He's like, and there's only one of me right now. So you're a lot bigger than me. Verbatim, you're a lot bigger than me. So I'm going to have to handcuff you and put you on the hood of my car. And at that point, as I said, I'm just going through my mind. I'm like, but why? But why? And I just turn around, let him do it. And at that time, we put one shackle or a cuff on my hand. And the other one, I was like, my freedom is gone at this point. It isn't, we talk about you can control things. At that point, it's in his hands. I can still be better. I can do what I need to do as far as behave and comply, but you never know how that's going to go. So I do that. He searches. Before I told him I'm going to the medieval reenactment event. So I have swords, I have stuff and crowns. And I couldn't see all that he was doing because I didn't want to move too much. But I saw him open the trunk. He saw the crown that I had. And then he hurried up to search after he couldn't find anything. And those were those moments where I was like, man, I'm Prince. I'm at the top of my game. I'm doing this stuff here. I became one. And not just Prince, I was the 100th Prince right now. So I'm going to be the 100th King. So it's 50 years of this. But yet I'm still just another black guy. I'm still just another number. And it's real sobering. And then he said he let me go. And then we talked, like, he said, thank you, go back to your car. Thank you for complying. And that part I was still pretty shook, but I'm just going through it. He comes back, giving me my license. He's like, I saw that you're a veteran. I was like, yep, I was in the Air Force. I was a crew chief, C-130. He's like, yep, I was in the Air Force as well. I was a security force officer. And I was like, hey, officer, am I free to go? He's like, yes, have a good day. And then I drove for a little bit, pulled off, and I just started bawling. I was just like, man, what if? You start playing that what if game. What if they thought this? What if they thought this? And I called Her Highness at the time, my wife, and she was like, hey, this got happened. I'm okay. I'm glad everything all right, but I was just shook. And that's the part where I'm glad I shared it. I'm glad it's reached a lot of people. I'm not trying to say I speak for all people of color. I speak for myself. I happen to be a person of color, and this is my experience. And a lot of times people look past, especially me being kind and nice, and people don't see me being mean. They don't see me angry. So when I'm fighting, yes, I can be violent, explosive, but it's like never out of maliciousness. But they still don't see at that time I'm a 280 pounds, 6'4" guy over whatever, and they can be scared and worried. So that's the story. And there's some other stuff, but that's the most one that's ever impacted me the most.
So my question for you is, did he ever tell you why he initially pulled you over?
No. And I'll be honest with you on that part, is either I was so shell-shocked after being like, because it happened a year ago now, so I can't remember exactly. It might have been like that whole, oh, I thought you were doing erratic driving or you pulled over real quick. But for the most part, it was not anything solid. It was not at all. No light, no tail light was out. You weren't going over the speed limit. Yeah.
So, and the other thing that I really want to drive home is the feeling that, like, you were at the top of your game.
Mm-hmm.
You're riding high on the things that you have accomplished in your life, and all of a sudden, within a matter of moments, it's all stripped away from you for no reason other than you're a black man in a car full of stuff.
Yeah. And I had some friends that I hope you fit a description, which doesn't help make it better. but they're like, I hope that off, and I know still that part where they're like, maybe they were actually looking for something, like they said this, but that still doesn't make it better. It's hard, and I'll be honest to you, not being all dour, but when I was getting out, I was like, man, if something happens and I get shot, the mid-realm is coming after you, and they're gonna be mad. But that's really bleak for that's the happiest thing you're thinking about during that moment. But yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, it's a real sobering thing, and I told some friends, not that a lot of people were very compassionate, they were sorry, they were scared, but a lot of people, once again, they don't really internalize how scared you were, because everyone gets pulled over. Everyone doesn't like getting pulled over cops, but I'm not like I'm not making it up. I was so like, well, this could be it. Who knows?
And that's one of those things, like, I've been prepared for that since I was a teenager. My grandfather and my father both had separate discussions with me about not only like what to do in that situation, but also, hey, you may do everything right and you might still lose. So, you know, you have to be prepared for that. And that, I'm sorry, but that's fucked up.
It is.
It is.
It pisses me off that I had to have that conversation with my son.
Yep.
I don't want to have those conversations anymore. I don't want to have those conversations anymore. And I know that people out there right now who are saying, well, you know, people who are not people of color who are saying, well, I've had the conversation, you know, with my kid about being respectful with police and everything. Yeah, but are you really worried when you had that conversation that they would be killed? Get in trouble? Yes, you were worried about that. You didn't want them to ruin their chances of going to a good school or something like that. And I know it's not everyone, but it doesn't matter what strata of the Black experience you're from, you know, the super rich movie stars to the poorest of the poor folks. They will all have that conversation with their children.
Yep.
It's pretty fucked up.
One of the things they preach to us all the time is, you know, and I tell it to the kids I work with, like, look, you know, it doesn't matter at that point how right you are. Your job is not to prove yourself right. Your job is to survive the encounter. And, you know, I'm going to segue that into another thing. You know, you had people out there protesting because they want haircuts. They want to be able to go to the nail salon and stuff like that. But if you look at all those other people out there protesting, you know, in the name of BLM, they're protesting because they want to be able to have their day in court.
Yeah.
You know, they want their court date, not a eulogy, not an officer and a priest going to a parent's house and saying, well, this thing happened.
And you know what else they want? They want equal sentences.
Yeah.
Or when they do something dumb and they get caught, they want the same sentence that anyone else is going to get.
Yeah.
In the same circumstance.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all these people want. They don't want special treatment. We don't want special treatment. We just want some fucking fairness. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah. All right. So we got another pointed question. This one is for you, Stelios. Your Black Panther rig.
Yeah. Oh Lord, here we go.
So I think a lot of people know you for your Black Panther rig, your SCA kit, fully acceptable SCA kit. But when you first popped up with that, you got a lot of blowback. I mean, you got a lot of pats on the back, but there is some grumpiness about it.
The vast majority of that blowback took place online and online only. Actually, I would say all of it took place online and online only, because everybody who saw it loved it. Now, here's the thing. Onto Westward, I want to say it was 2 years ago, because that was where it first made its debut.
Yes.
The thing I remember the most from that, and it's probably one of the SCA memories I'll have till the day I die, is me walking out of the wood line by myself and the entirety of Ermine Company standing up and throwing the salute. And I'm like, hell yeah.
But that's actually where we first met.
When the kids saw it, the kids loved it, and that made it all worth it. Just to see the magic on these little kids' faces, because they're like, and this one kid, I remember I was going to I want to say I wasn't in Merchants Row, I was past Merchants Row, and I just left Finn's wedding because him and I feel so bad that I forgot that dude's name, but they got married at that event, and I was leaving that wedding, and I met this young man and his mom, and his mom told me that this was his first event and that Black Panther was his favorite superhero. And I didn't even have to think about it but I remembered that Onto Westward was my first event. And at my first event, I was given a gift. So I would always remember it. I got a coin. It's not the Rona. I got a coin from Dame Bridget Ross, and I still have that coin. And that coin means a lot to me because it was the first gift that I was given at an SCA event, at my first event. So what I did was I took off my original set of teeth, the ones that go around my neck, and I put them around his neck. And I told him, I said, at my first event, I was given a gift. And I think at your first event, you should have a gift too.
Oh.
So I gave this kid my teeth.
That's awesome.
I mean, I figured, hey, it was the right thing to do.
That's cool.
And you as a person who's done this for a long time, you have an obligation to make it magical for people just coming in. You have an obligation to be that hero, or in some cases, that villain, within parameters, of course. To make that experience, real and authentic to this person. That's what they did for me.
Passing it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen, there are so many good questions in the comments, and I'm going to have to grab them, and I'm going to, once I get this posted to Facebook, I'm going to put them all here, and I'm going to ask you guys if you wouldn't mind coming back and answering some of these questions, because there are some questions that we just don't have time to get to.
Okay,
sure.
Yeah,
an hour and a half. Thank you so much for coming and doing this with me. It really means a lot to me.
I was honored to even be asked.
Thank you for having me.
You both.
For us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things. The only way that we're going to do better as a whole is by having these conversations, talking to people, and answering questions. And I know me, for my part, I'm more than willing to have these questions answered, or to answer these questions, to have these conversations with anyone. You can hit me up on the Ask the Knights page. You can hit me up on my personal page, Leo Livas, in my private messages, if you want to have a one-on-one quiet conversation. More than happy to talk to and answer any questions that anyone might have, even silly questions, especially silly questions. Those are my favorites. And so I would hope that I can have you guys back on for a non-special edition of Ask the Knights Live. And Stelios, I know that you're not a knight, but I have another show that's coming up that I'm going to sucker you into anyway. So,
I mean, all you got to do is ask.
all right. Thank you so much. Once again, I have to thank the cast and crew at Between Two Peers for helping us get on the air tonight after all of our craziness and our technical difficulties. And thank everybody who sent in questions. Thank everybody who's watching. I hope we all learned something tonight, or at least gave us things that we could think about. And I hope,
if I may, the last thing I wanted to say is like, once again,
Sure.
thank you so much. And I challenge you guys to look at the core values of the SCA. Go on the SCA.org website. On the top right, there's a little magnifying glass. Click on the black magnifying glass, type in core values. Look at those. Those are what we represent, and that's what we have to uphold. It says literally on there, if you do not uphold these, you may be asked to leave. So people asking like, there's certain things that are not enforced, or maybe I will just leave. I'm like, well, if you do the wrong thing, you're actually going to be asked to leave. So don't let them weigh that over you. But sorry, I didn't mean to, I just want to make sure I said that.
no, and you told me that you wanted to do that, and I completely forgot about it.
It was a good talk. Good talk.
Yeah, thank you again, both of you, for coming. So hopefully we'll get this all taken care of. I've got it recorded. It will go up on the page, so everyone who didn't get to see it will be able to see it if they want to. As always, if you enjoyed this, please like the page, share it with friends, and watch all the other videos. We've got some great videos with some great nights. They're not all as serious as this. And we've got a ridiculously cool lineup coming up in the next few weeks. Our normal time slot is Thursdays at 7 o'clock. So if you can join us, I would love to have you join us. Thank you all so much again for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Take it easy. Thank you.
Be well, friends.